right, so welcome everybody. I'm Christina McGrath, and today we are going to be talking about conserving energy. Yana Chikaris and I have put together a really cool topic about conserving energy, and we're going to be using some studies that we've researched and also our own experience to talk about why we should conserve energy from a physical and mental standpoint, how we can conserve energy, and then also when and where we are conserving energy. So we'll get into it, and I'm really excited. Obviously, you guys know that rest and recovery is one of my things. That's only one thing that we're going to be talking about today. So a couple things about conserving energy. So Yana, do you want to start?
Hey everybody, my name is Yana. So we're going to talk briefly on why we should conserve energy, and we're specifically talking about conserving energy in the body. So the reasons why, and there are many reasons, but the main three that we're going to focus on today is one, it increases our efficiency levels, it makes us more effective, and it increases our intentions or our way of being more intuitive throughout the day. So the first one is increasing efficiency. I read this quote somewhere, and I wish I can remember where I read it, but it's efficiency is the essence of coordination. So I think we all love to spend our days in a flow state, you know, when everything is kind of moving effortlessly with ease. I found that there is a way that to promote this smooth activity, and it is simply through the practice of becoming more selective with how you spend your time. So the idea is that you can optimize your time by choosing what you want to do, how you would like to do it, and really who you spend your time with. And I think that the more clear that you become with how and what you want to do with your day, you'll realize that you will save yourself a lot of energy. So the second one, and this one kind of the efficiency falls into being effective. Obviously, the more efficient we are, the more effective we are. So those things kind of go hand in hand. But I think it's undeniable that, you know, we as humans, we seek satisfaction or, you know, that feeling of accomplishment, and doing something that we enjoy or doing something that we feel good about really provides us with an internal reward. And in this case, practicing being more effective with our time helps us to feel more happy, more satisfied with what we've had, with what we've gotten accomplished. And in the process of being happy, we actually conserve energy, because what really depletes us at the end of the day is stress. You know, any lower vibration emotion like anger, hate, jealousy, things like that, that really bring us down and waste our energy throughout the day. So being more effective, making us feel a little bit more accomplished and kind of happy with what we do. And the third way is really living more intentionally. There is a quote in the Lion's Roar magazine that says that being more in touch with our motivations or intentions will reveal a lot about our ethical dimensions of our actions. And I think this is important, you know, really questioning your reasoning behind doing something, which really involves the ability to slow down and be more intentional with your action. Obviously, there's a fine balance between, you know, free will and fate. Some things just happen, and other things we really do have a control over. And, you know, and I think that the more direct that we become with our path and eliminating unnecessary steps throughout the day and being more intentional will really decrease the levels of like unnecessary like backtracking. So if you think about hiking, when you're hiking up the mountain, your intention is to get to the top. That is your intention. So you're going to find the path that will conserve your energy. You know, you don't want to go straight up the mountain because obviously you'll burn yourself out. And at the same time, you don't want to be wandering around with no plan whatsoever. So it is a fine balance of both. So yeah, those are some of the reasons of why we want to conserve our energy. I know Christina wanted also to mention a couple of things as well.
So coming from that standpoint, I think a couple of things that we can talk about for what do we mean by energy conservation, like of the body, because obviously everything that we do involves use of energy. And my big thing is optimization and vitality. So I love this idea of conserving energy, and I'm definitely a saver. But from talking, eating, listening, all these different tasks that we do, there's two things that I wanted to cover in this. But I'll first start out with Duke University's Department of Physical and Occupational Therapy. Their quote, "Energy conservation refers to the way activities are done to minimize muscle fatigue, joint stress, and pain. So by using your body efficiently and doing things in a sequential way," which is kind of what Jana was talking about as well, "you can save your energy." So the economy of movement, I started to get into this with different sports and then also with yoga, is when you can do a task or perform a movement, or in sport or in life, that you only have to move one thing. So you only have to move, instead of maybe placing your hand in one position with one movement, you might do 3 or 4 movements and then finally get it. That's obviously a little bit more efficient than going right precisely to the movement. So economy of movements is using the least amount of movements to achieve the result, which I think is really cool. And I learned a lot of that in yoga. I realized that when I was stepping forward, you only need to make one step, or you only need to, depending on what your posture is, or you only need to move one thing or one time. So really using that economy of movement is another way to think about efficiency with movement. So I encourage you to kind of look at what you're doing today and in an economy of movement kind of style of things, and thinking about, can I take 1 step or 2 steps, maybe not in a physical way, but even in a step and in the steps you're going to take to achieve something. So you can use that, just that idea, that intentionality, to make maybe 1 move instead of a couple moves. So I really like that. And then also going on to thinking about when you're learning a different sport, which is really interesting, or when you're learning anything. Really, we use a lot of energy in scrunching our shoulders, or furrowing, or I find that when I teach mountain biking or different sports, it's like people are like this. I'm like, you're just using your legs. Like, just relax all of this, because that's using energy that you don't need to be using. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Jana was saying earlier when we were talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for example, I'm just going to say this is obviously my first webinar, my first recording, but I noticed, just speaking, like in my shoulders went up, and it's not that I'm necessarily uncomfortable, but it's something new, and so when you're doing something new, like Christina said, you have a higher chance of putting stress where it's not necessary. And I think that maybe comes with being slightly uncomfortable, or maybe a little bit nervous, whatever it is. When we are hesitant or just more excited, sometimes we tense, and through that tension is where we do waste actually a lot of energy. So checking in with that as well.
Yeah, so really being aware of what muscles, obviously in just with posture, like sitting here, Jana and I were talking about this earlier, is if you have a nice posture where your skeleton's straight, you have better circulation, your shoulders are relaxed, your jaw is relaxed, your eyes are relaxed, you're using less energy than if you were tense in other places, and for example, even your core being tense. You don't need to use all of that, because that just causes stress, and that can also constrict your breathing, which is a whole nother idea of conserving energy.
That's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole nother topic. Breathing is a whole nother topic that we just take for granted, thank God. So I think the main thing that I wanted to stress here is that, 1, you can probably use simpler steps in achieving either towards different goals, or perhaps in your movements. You can use 1 step instead of 2, using an economy of movement. And then when you're doing different sports, or you're learning different sports, if you use some deliberate practice, and these are a couple of the webinars that Charles and I have done before, deliberate practice with a coach, becoming efficient, learning things the correct way, that's so much better to conserve energy and efficiency. And honestly, from teaching different sports for so long, it is so much easier to start with someone who's never ever done it than to try to fix a bad habit. So I totally encourage you, if you're learning something new, to start efficiently, because it will save you so much time and energy in the long run. And I think it's actually brilliant. And the other thing is, obviously, just to go back, is to relax those parts of your body that you actually don't need when you're doing different things, because then you can use, even if you're on the treadmill or you're walking, you're using your leg muscles. Just use your leg muscles, use your hips, relax your jaw, relax your arms, relax. Sometimes you even need to just shake out your hands and relax your hands. So just using those relaxation techniques daily will get you so much more in touch with your body, and conserving energy in parts of your body that you actually can conserve energy to use more energy in the muscles or your mind or anything like that you would like to learn. So get a guide. A couple of the other things that Yana and I were talking about, and I think one of the things that's really interesting, and I know Charles and I have probably mentioned this in webinars before, but is multitasking. And I feel like we know by now, there's enough studies out that we know if we single task, we're a lot more effective. So thinking about less is more, then more is more. We often believe that by moving faster, we're getting more stuff done. However, you can look back on your day and be like, I don't even know what I did. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So that was the other day. So I think it's really interesting, just really single tasking, even when you're eating, because I think that one of the things that Yana was mentioning too is just by eating slower and chewing more, it's like the digestive system doesn't have to work as hard. But a lot of us, I'll be on like a podcast or on my phone while I'm eating, and it's like, well, that's actually multitasking. That's not effective for my whole system. If I just am present with my food and present with my system and relaxed, I'm probably going to be way more effective with any of the tasks that I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my teachers told me is like, chew at least 24 times when you're chewing more denser food, because it increases your saliva, and the more saliva that you kind of take in with what you're consuming or what you're eating, it helps the breakdown process. So you really are saving yourself energy.
Yeah. Literally with your metabolic system. I think that was really cool. I think I would go crazy if I did 24 times, but I'll work on it.
Yeah. Well, that's denser food. Obviously not everything, but you know.
Okay. Okay. So a couple of things that really cool research that we were pulling up in Inc.com's article, Psychology and Neuroscience, blowing up the myth of effective multitasking. Scott was saying, we sacrifice our full presence when we are multitasking. We do so for a perceived benefit of improved productivity that simply doesn't exist. Research indicates that multitaskers are less likely to be productive, yet they feel more emotionally satisfied with their work, thus creating an illusion of productivity, which is hilarious. And we're going to talk about also dopamine levels in a second here. Yeah. Other quotes that we have from that article, which are really interesting, are 40% of productivity could be lost due to task switching. So I know in some other webinars and some other philosophies, obviously achieving flow state and peak performance involves kind of chunking your time in time blocks of where you're really focused for a short amount of time and not switching tasks, because multitasking is when you switch a task, you're 40% less productive on all your tasks. So I feel like this is very, very, very true. And another study, a Stanford study, confirmed this by showing that people who multitask are indeed worse performers and struggle because they can't filter out irrelevant information. And this goes back to what Yana was talking about being really extremely present with what you're doing at the time. So because we're multitasking, we can't see the irrelevant information, and we're moving quickly and nothing gets done well. So another additional study, it did say it takes 4 times longer for the brain to recognize new things, and we have a much slower retention rate. So if nothing else has told you not to multitask, it's like that we can't remember anything, that we can't sort out irrelevant information, and that we can't remember. So
Yeah.
I think that's extremely important to think about with multitasking. So
Hmm.
single tasking, time chunking, things like that. And if you're like me, it's a work in progress to stay on a task. And so there's a couple things with that is like chunking out times for 25 minutes to 45 minutes to 55 minutes, chunking out that time, not being distracted, doing exactly that task and nothing else. And if you can't do that, I can't remember the book. It might have been The One Big Thing. However, they were saying if you can't even do that, do 5 minutes. And
Hmm.
it's like a power session of 5 minutes, just focusing on that text. And usually after 5 minutes, you're going to have some sort of flow and that you can continue. And then you can kind of work your way up as
Yep, it's
well.
the same thing with meditation,
Yeah.
when you're beginning meditation, it's the same thing. It's single pointed focus. It's to help, well, one, acknowledge all the thoughts that are taking place, but it is to zoom in to create a focus point. And in meditation, it's the same thing. When you're starting off, 5 minutes might be your maximum. That's all you need. It's a practice. And so over time, as you become more comfortable or more steady, with your thoughts and more focused, I think then you can obviously increase the time.
And go for longer. Totally. I
Yeah.
think that's we were talking about this earlier, and I feel like that's a really, it's that mind, the focus of the mind and the brain on one single activity, whether it's stillness or action. So I think that's really
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
Another cool one that I really like in The
I
Lion's
like
Roar,
that.
the myth of multitasking. Successful multitasking has been shown to activate the reward circuit by increasing dopamine levels in the brain. So the brain's chemical responses for feelings of happiness. So dopamine is happiness. So multitasking creates this dopamine response. And the danger of this is that we love that dopamine rush. So we get addicted to multitasking because it actually makes us feel good. And so this is comparable to the rush that you have at a casino or like when you win something. So this dopamine rush has probably gotten us to the state of that we were like, oh my God, multitasking must be great because I feel so good when I'm doing it. However, the perceived effort is not is the less is more. So you're actually not creating as much of a result as you can by single tasking. So I think
Yep.
that's really interesting that we have a dopamine response to multitasking. And that's probably why we've been doing it for so long. So
Yeah.
Yana,
Right.
I want to go over some tips to conserve energy.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we could do it. I actually found that Duke University's Department of Physical and Occupational Therapy did a great job at organizing different principles and techniques that you can apply. So I wanted to go over those today because they really, the things that I wrote down from personal experience definitely overlapped what they had listed. So we'll just go over some of them. So the three main principles and techniques are actually organization, a balance of rest and activity, and then the last one is work simplification. So these are just some kind of brief, I don't know, let's just say
Ideas.
advice, ideas the ways that you can apply this into your daily life or reflect on at least. So the first one is plan ahead. I know Christina likes to plan the night before of what her day looks like. I also sometimes do that. But really just getting kind of focused. What is it that you want to accomplish? What are the things that need to get done? And what are the things that can be postponed? Their second point is prioritizing the work. So, I think that can be played around with, but I think most importantly, like putting in order, maybe some of the things are work related and some of the things are recreational or sports related. Whatever it is, I always like to reflect on where am I at currently and then prioritizing the work. Because say I've been working a lot and I've been putting, let's say my physical exercise on the back burner, I know that I'm going to have to restructure my planning so that I prioritize my health as well. So I think, that one you can definitely play around with, organizing not just work, but a playtime, family time, relationship, whatever it is, and putting it into order of what applies for you and what is important at this time.
And I think
And
the other thing with the prioritize your work, and this just came to me, but one of the past webinars we did was the one big thing. And so it's what one thing can you do today that's going to make everything better or create more movement in the direction of your goals. So you could also say something like that as well with prioritizing your work. What's the one big thing I need to do for health, like you said, for your art, for your work? So,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
So prioritize and then analyze. Some things might be working out, some things might not be. You might have put, work at the top, and all of a sudden you're noticing that everything else in your life is falling apart. So analyze that. Everything is interrelated. What do you need to focus on, and what do you need to eliminate? Which is actually what they have listed for the next one, is eliminate all unnecessary steps through analyzing. You kind of filter out what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. They also mentioned combined tasks and activities. I think that this is also really beneficial. Christina rides her bike a lot. I walk a lot. So sometimes when we leave the house, it's like, we want to kind of combine the tasks that need to be getting done, especially if we're spending, 10 miles riding a bike somewhere or 10 miles walking somewhere. It's like, I think it's really beneficial to kind of combine what it is that you're doing and what is fitting. And then considering making changes to the tasks and activities. And I think that's just, kind of going through the organization process of analyzing, prioritizing, eliminating, combining, things like that.
And this also is really cool because all of these are really notes for peak performers. So people that are peak performers, they analyze things, and they also have a growth mindset that allows them to be like, okay, how can I do that a little bit better? Or how can I make changes? They're not too precious about exactly how the tasks are going. So I think this organizational plan that you've just gone over is extremely important just for facilitating work towards our goals and a little bit more, I don't want to say balance, because I feel like we're always kind of like weaving through flow, but creating a little bit more balance in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as I read over these things, like I said, I'm thinking also like, okay, when I'm doing my art, I realized there was things that I was doing that were not effective, or I was placing one thing over the other. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, for me, life is a practice, and I kind of recommend for others to take on this attitude that you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna learn along the way, but it's through analyzing, through reflecting, and all these things that you live and learn. So moving on to balance of rest and activity. And again, it's that finding that balance, kind of weaving back and forth of what works and what doesn't work. But rest and activity, rest is extremely important. I know that Christina is huge on rest. I've become a little bit more bigger on the rest aspect. It was something I had to wrestle myself with. But I think here what Duke is saying is, the first one, they say that frequent short rests are more beneficial than fewer longer ones. And I think a lot of that comes from using your intuition. When is your burnout phase? When are you kind of overdoing things, right?
And you definitely want to tap into like when we were just talking about this, you want to tap into like your performance and your rest. Like that's how you get stronger. So really thinking about, well, when you go into survival and stress, then you risk burnout. So you really want to play with that performance and recovery stages. So really being almost active with your rest, like we were talking about, like getting your 8 hours. And
you either choose it or it chooses you, as you say.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Either you burn out and then you have to lay down for like 2 weeks, or
right. Yeah. So the next thing that they have is the amount of rest you need and the amount of activity you can do will vary day to day. And I think that this is huge, because I think, and I don't know if this is a Western way of living or whatever it is, but there is this idea of like, you create a habit, whether it's good or bad, hopefully it's good, and then you repeat it on a daily basis without, taking into consideration that every day might be completely different than the other. Some days you need more rest, some days you need more play, some days you need more work. And I think that again, it goes back to the idea of being really intentional and intuitive, like listening to your body's needs. When do you feel depleted? And if you do feel depleted, it's like, okay, take a rest, lay down, whatever it is that you need to do. But really listening to your body and knowing that you're not going to perform the same way every single day. And I think that's huge with competitive sports and things like that, especially like marathons, is that, when you're prepping for it, Christina's told me that, you have to plan it accordingly, because you're not going to feel as great as you did yesterday or as bad as you did yesterday, whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah.
And then they go into plan your work so difficult tasks are done during the best time of the day. And I like this because I think you figure out when is your peak time of the day. Like, what I learned for myself, that morning time is the best time, from 6 a.m. to 11 o'clock. That is the time that I'm most effective, efficient, everything. I love waking up in the morning early. But just figuring out what time is that for you. For some people it might be in the afternoon, others in the evening, and planning your tasks that you have to get done based on the time that you have either the highest energy levels or whatever it is, when you're the most happiest. And then rest before you tire. Again, that's going back to kind of like the burnout, to really honor yourself if you need to sit down or lay down or take a midday nap. That's something that I've found actually beneficial, and I'm no longer wrestling with this. If I need to lay down and take a 20-minute rest, that's okay. And I recommend it too if you're feeling the same way. And what else do they have? Let's see. Planning a balance of work, recreation, exercise, and rest. I think I've already kind of discussed this, but work is not always the most important thing. In fact, I think what Christina and I are kind of gravitating towards is allowing the work to be more playful, to allow yourself to have more fun with it, with whatever it is that you're doing. But yes, knowing that work is as equally as important as your exercise, as your time outdoors, as your time with your family. And here they also mention, again, if possible, lie down to rest. I think that's a great way to kind of recover from whatever it is that is depleting your energy. And breathing techniques, I think that's huge. And Christina and I both, come from the yoga world, where practicing Ujjayi pranayama, really it's breathing consciously in through the nostrils and out through the nostrils. Slowing down the breath helps us to save and conserve energy.
Well, and one of the things with that is that not only lying down, but breathing in and out through your nose allows, and then definitely getting into your belly a little bit more, allows us to lower our stress hormones. So you're in more of a rest and relaxation state more of the time, which is exactly what you want if you're not under, if you're not doing like huge amounts of intense exercise.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's our ideal state.
Yeah. So let's go over the last one that Duke has, is work simplification, canceling tasks that are not really necessary. I think that goes back to your organization, like eliminating the things that, are either depleting you or you really feel are non-essential to you or your day. Delegating responsibilities to others. This is a cool one. And I feel that it does it's a way of practicing your inner strength and the ability to communicate what it is that needs to be done, and communicating what it is that you're willing to do and what it is that you're not willing to do. So the ability to say yes or no, I think, is huge. And then passing on the task, with your family or maybe your partner, your business partner, whoever it is, just being clear on, what you can do and what you can't, not overloading yourself. Simplifying your method of work. It's also, I think, goes back to organization, becoming more efficient, is like, okay, what am I doing that is not necessary at this time? They also mentioned adjusting the height of the work surface to allow good posture. Christina said that in the beginning of the talk, having a straight spine. Yoga is the same thing. We learn how to sit up straight, hold good posture to increase circulation within the body, help everything move a little bit more smoothly to help us conserve that energy. And I think, yeah, for work simplification, that's about it with what they had to say. But some of my advice is just to be more intentional. I think it goes back to, like slowing down in your movements through maybe eating, through walking, talking, and practicing breathing as well. Meditation helps. I think all of those can be a form of meditation on ways that you can conserve energy.
Yay.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings to a close, and hopefully you got some good ideas on how to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more efficient, some tips on how to conserve energy. So you can, the whole idea of conserving energy is that you rest and recover well so you can do the things that you love to do. And then also be stronger in sport and life. So I feel like conserving energy is a huge component of all of that, and it's essential to your rest and recovery. So hopefully you enjoyed that today. It was awesome. Nice job, Yana. I love it. And
Nice
we will
job,
be,
Christina. Thank
and
you,
we will be
everybody,
up
for joining
next
us
week.
today.
Very exciting. Yana is going to interview me on my new 4-week online program called Amplify. And we're going to be talking about the components of Amplify. It's all set up in Eat, Sleep, Move, and Create. And I would love for you to join us and learn a little bit more about how I did it and what you can gain from it. So thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
We will see you next week at this time.